Hey again, CPA, it's me. I just wanted to get on really quick and introduce you to another unfamiliar face. But again, one that belongs to someone whom I love very much. But I wanted to introduce you to my dad, Pastor Pops, or as he is more well known, Pastor Daryl. But I really hope you enjoy this devotional, and I really hope you get something out of it.
Hey there, CPA. As you just heard, I'm Pastor Daryl Buttram from the 10th Avenue Church of God in Huntington, West Virginia, otherwise known as Melody's dad. And I'm looking forward to these next few moments. This is my first time to really connect with you. We're going to be talking about God's sovereignty in our lives and the aspects of God as he brings mercy and grace into our lives. When we talk about mercy and grace, we understand mercy is that we don't get the punishment that we deserve, whereas grace, on the other hand, is we get the favor that we don't deserve. So on one hand, we don't get what we do deserve, the punishment. On the other hand, we get something that we don't deserve, the grace. We understand that we've been saved by grace through faith, that not of works, lest any man should boast. But yet there's so many aspects of mercy and grace. It can look different in our lives in different seasons as we go through different things. When we talk about mercy, I recently read a story of one of the presidents of the United States, Calvin Coolidge, how that he had been in a hotel room and somehow a young man had broken into his hotel room, had evaded the Secret Service, had managed to go through the president's pockets and was in the process of stealing his watch chain that was connected to a locket. Well, the president woke up to this happening in his hotel room and simply told the would-be thief, "Please don't steal the watch chain. It's important to me." The thief then was a little taken aback that the president was just talking to him and not raising the alarm, and they began to have a discussion. The President Coolidge, discovered that the young man was doing this because he couldn't pay for his college bill. So the president got out of bed and grabbed his wallet, took $32 out of his wallet and handed it to the young man and said, "This is a loan," and then proceeded to find a way to sneak him out of the hotel so the Secret Service wouldn't catch him. Several years later, that young man, after completing college, stopped by the White House and repaid President Coolidge for that $32 loan. The president could have raised the alarm. That man could have spent the rest of his life in jail. But instead, the president took a different direction. He saw an opportunity to invest in someone's life with something that someone did not deserve, but somehow the president had a feeling that it would be better for him. At the same time, when we talk about grace, it can sometimes look like that kind of a merciful opportunity that the president took advantage of. Sometimes it can look completely different. In my own life, when I was 6 years old, my father was pastoring a church that was about a mile from our house, and one hot summer's day, he decided he was going to walk to the church, and he decided I was going to walk with him. Halfway in between the house and the church was a park, and we decided to stop there and rest. Again, it was a hot summer's day. We sat down on a park bench, and right there beside me, there was a Snickers bar. Well, I have a huge weakness. I absolutely am addicted to chocolate. I think that someone needs to stage an intervention. But this has been something that's been going on pretty much all my life. And so at the age of 6, when I saw that Snickers bar sitting right there beside me on the bench, it was calling out my name. I grabbed it. I was going to eat it. And my dad said, "No, you can't eat it. Go throw it away, and I will buy a Snickers bar for you." So I went toward the trash can. Trash can was on the other side of the bathrooms between that park bench and where the trash can was. I was able to sneak and open up that Snickers bar and take a bite. Not just one bite, but 2 bites and 3 bites until I had put almost the entire Snickers bar into my little 6-year-old mouth. I came back to where my dad was after throwing away the remnants in the wrapper. Stood before my dad and he asked me, "Did you throw away the Snickers bar?" I had a little smudge of chocolate on my lip, and yet I nodded my head yes. He asked me to open my mouth, and there inside of my mouth was the residue of that Snickers bar. I'd been caught. I was in trouble. I knew I was going to get a spanking. I was going to be punished. So we walked the rest of the way to the church, knowing full well that there was punishment that was waiting for me. But just before we got to the church, there was a little storefront. My dad stepped into that store and told me to stay outside. He walked in, spent a few minutes there, and walked out. And when he did, he had 2 Snickers bars in his hands and 2 bottles of grape knee-high, which was my favorite soft drink. We finished our walk to the church. My dad took one of the Snickers bars and began to open it up and handed the other one to me. He then took one of the grape knee-high bottles and opened it up, opened the other one, and handed it to me. He allowed me to realize that my dad had wanted to give me something so much better than what I was settling for. He explained to me that he didn't know what had been done to that Snickers bar. It could have had something injected into it. It could have had a razor blade into it. Whatever the case was, it could have been dangerous. Now he hands me the Snickers bar that I don't deserve and something even better, that grape knee-high. And there I was, still knowing that I deserved a punishment, still knowing that I should not have received that Snickers bar, and yet being able to enjoy a Snickers bar and a grape knee-high. It was even better than what I was asked to let go of. That spoke to me volumes about what grace and mercy should look like. Even though I still had to go through a punishment, Scripture tells us about the Lord that those that he loves, he rebukes and he chastens. So sometimes we go through times where we feel a little bit of judgment or punishment in the process, but he still holds out that incredible grace for us that we don't deserve, that is so much greater than all the junk that we sometimes have settled for. He holds out that grace, he holds out that mercy, and he just wants us to let go of the thing that is so much less so we can take hold of the thing that is so much greater. At the same time, when it comes to the grace of God, sometimes you can't identify it. You can't see it and identify that it's something as sweet as a Snickers bar. Sometimes it's harder to see because you're going through hard things. It's with this in mind that I want to direct you to 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9. You find that the Apostle Paul has been struggling because of a thorn in his flesh. He's asked God to remove that thorn in his flesh 3 different times, and all kinds of people argue over what that thorn in the flesh really might have been. We don't know. Maybe when we get to heaven, we can ask Paul. But what we do know is that on that 3rd time, God spoke to Paul and said these words. He said, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness." Then Paul said, "Therefore, most gladly I will rather boast in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me." It's not all about the sweet stuff when it comes to the grace of God. We are thankful for the sweet things that he gives us. But sometimes that grace is just knowing that whatever it is that we're going through, God is going through it with us. The sovereign God who created the world has a plan. He has a purpose. And along the way, he may have Snickers bars and maybe even some grape knee-highs. But ultimately, the greater thing is the fact that he's still right there with us. No matter where you've been, no matter what you've done, God is there. And he's extending his grace and his mercy to you. I hope you all have a great day. Be blessed.